Hey guys, Farrell here. Today we're going to talk about Fujifilm gear that I've had and I've sold. Do I have any gear that I particularly miss? Are there any regrets? Let's go through this together and find out. Okay, so first, camera bodies. This is the one that everyone's really excited about. They want to know what you've had, what you've not got anymore. And A, thank you for 1,000 subscribers. That's freaking immense. B, there are some bits of gear that I miss and there will be some shockers in this, okay? But don't hate me. So, I am an absolute hoarder when it comes to camera gear. Now, as it stands, I don't have much in the terms of digital cameras. Film cameras, I've got a ton of. I've got like 6 film cameras at the moment. But digital cameras, ooh, we're looking thin. So, Fujifilm cameras that I've had. I had the original X Pro 1. Now, this was my ride or die camera. But yeah, this is just a quick video. I wanted to give a shout out to a camera that I've had for 6 years. I love shooting this camera. The images on it make it really stand out to me, and that's one of the reasons I'll likely hang on to this camera for the rest of my life. Realistically, I just didn't use it anymore. Once I upgraded to the XS10, and that was a significant upgrade in every possible way, I just didn't use the X Pro 1. Now, I did miss the dials, which led me on to getting the XT4, but I do still miss the X Pro 1. It was a fantastic camera. I probably would struggle to recommend it to people nowadays. It's still a very, very good camera, and I could make fantastic images, but the resale market on this camera has kind of gone crazy. And I understand it. The sensor is amazing, and I've created some of my best work from that camera. But I don't think I would comfortably recommend it again. The autofocus is more or less unusable, but as a manual focus camera, it's still pretty fantastic. The viewfinder, from my memory, wasn't amazing. And the optical viewfinder in the X Pro 1 was near or less useless. The X Pro 2 was an enormous upgrade on that. So yes, my beloved X Pro 1, I owned it for many years, but she has been sold. I know, I didn't expect to do it either, but it doesn't make sense to just sit on a shelf looking pretty. I want it out there being used. Camera number 2, my X70. Now, this one is sore for me because every compact film camera and even compact digital cameras that I end up buying, I compare them to the X70. Everything is compared to that camera because its size and its pocketability still make it one of the best cameras for everyday use. And yeah, I sold it. I really miss it, but, and there is a big but on this one.
I like big butts and I cannot lie.
A, it's outdated, but more importantly, the market value on that camera does not justify what you get in that camera at all. The X Pro 1's prices were inflated. The X70 prices are laughable. I've seen these going upwards of £700, and that's just insane. The lens on it's pretty good, not amazing. There's no viewfinder. That's a big issue for me. I really like a viewfinder. And the autofocus, again, isn't amazing. It's certainly much better than the X Pro 1, but it's still not perfect. And I did use it for a couple of my very early YouTube videos. It wasn't great. The quality is not there. If they refresh this, made as an X80 with some decent video specs, the lens, they can keep the same. Maybe a pop-up viewfinder, similar to the RX100 series, something like that. Then I think we'd be onto a winner. Overall, it is a fantastic camera, and I miss its pocketability, but it was quite heavily flawed, and if I could pick one up for £200, maybe £300 again, I would consider it, but £700 is frankly a joke. But fun camera, and everything is compared to it. Okay, next one, my XS10. Woo, I fucking loved this camera. Now, I hated the dials on it, and it was ugly. But it was a great travel camera, and I got some fantastic images from this. So definitely boosted my portfolio with this one. This camera was a turning point for me, really, in spending more time with my composition. I really tried to take my photography to the next level when I got this camera, and I could definitely feel the difference from my early work on the XS10 to my later work on the XS10. The difference was quite substantial. Now, I don't miss this camera though. Its size, again, is fantastic. The grip is much better than that on my X-T4. But overall, it was a very uninspiring camera. It was just with me at a very lucky time when I was able to do a little bit more traveling. And because of that, and pairing it up with my 35mm, I got some fantastic results. But those results could have been caught with any camera from the Fujifilm line, realistically. And moreover, I did end up selling my XS10 because it wasn't weather sealed. And a lot of these places I spent time with it, it was getting wet through, and I was worried it was going to die on me at some point. So again, I've got a video comparing why I upgraded from the XS10 to the X-T4. Now, because I've still got the X-T4, I don't need the XS10. But it is a fantastic camera, and you can pick them up for an absolute steal nowadays, and I wouldn't hesitate to recommend them to anyone. I would recommend the XS10 over the X Pro 1, over the X70. Honestly, over a lot of cameras out there in the Fujifilm line, I think bang for buck, the XS10 is pretty high up there. Okay, last Fujifilm camera body that I sold. This is an interesting one. My X-T30. I recently dropped a video on this saying how much more I preferred taking it out over the X-T4. Again, you can tell from me talking about the X70 that I love a compact system. However, as good as the X-T30 was, I have big hands. And it was quite a cramped system. And every time I took it out, all I could think was, I could make this image on my X-T4 and I won't be worried about the weather. And I'll have IBIS, which will help stabilize my image a little bit more. And in the grand scheme of things, I just couldn't justify having two fantastically capable cameras. So, regrettably, I ended up selling it. Now, I really quite badly miss the X-T30, but I just know that every trip that I would go on, I would end up wanting to take the X-T4 because of its weather sealing, frankly. The thing is, the X-T4 has a bigger battery, it has a weather sealing, a much better EVF, and it has IBIS. The thing that goes against the X-T4 is the size. I just couldn't justify keeping both of them, and then I was getting choice paralysis. I was like, I really want to take the X-T30 because it's small and cute and I love it and it's a really capable camera. And the X-T4 just ends up sitting there. So I made a decision. I kept the X-T4. The X-T4 is the only body I have now. When I'm doing professional shoots, that means I'll probably rent a second body. Obviously, like many others, I am waiting for an X Pro 4 announcement anytime soon. Would be fucking brilliant. But that's where I am with things. So I sold the X Pro 1, my beloved. I sold the X70. I sold the XS10. And I sold the X-T30. I've still got my X-T4. And for now, she's staying with me. Going on to lenses. It's weird. With Fuji glass, I knew what I wanted from day one. I'm an avid follower of the photographer Kevin Mullins, and I remember him doting on the 35-1.4, and I remember looking at his images in awe. I've actually just been on a workshop with him, which was a fantastic experience. But I knew I wanted that 35-1.4, so originally I picked up my X Pro 1 and the 35mm 1.4, and I've still got it. I've still got that 35mm. It's my favourite lens. It's super, super compact for f1.4 glass. It's phenomenal. It is one of the best lenses I've ever used, and I don't think I'll ever get rid of it. The only time I would ever get rid of this lens, I think, is if I'm doing a complete brand swap, which, never say never. But yeah, I love this lens so much that I actually had this lens used for my wedding. So yeah, I've still got that. After that, so I've had a lot of third-party lenses, which I think is a separate video in itself. Soviet era lenses, Helios, Jupiter lenses, stuff like that. But if we're sticking specifically with Fujifilm stuff that I've sold, I had the 18 to 55 kit lens, the f2.8 to f4. I know people say it's the best kit lens that's ever been made, and certainly in terms of quality, it's sharp, it's fast, it's relatively portable but pretty heavy. I got rid of it. It didn't live up to the hype for me, and I don't particularly like zooms. I ended up replacing it with the Sigma 18 to 50 f2.8 constant aperture. Now, to be fair, I'm in a lucky situation where, my last... the XS10 and now the XT4, they both have inbuilt stabilization. The Fujifilm zoom, the 18 to 55, has OIS, but the Sigma doesn't. The Sigma overall is a better lens. I know everyone says, oh, but the Sigma's not got an aperture ring. I'm sorry, the aperture ring on that Fuji zoom is absolutely terrible. It's just a floating aperture ring, so you can just keep spinning it. It's not set at all. The other thing is honestly the weight and the size difference between the Sigma and the Fuji is quite substantial. Now, if I had a different body and I didn't have IBIS, then yeah, there would be more reason there to consider keeping that Fuji zoom, but I did get rid of it. I know, haters gonna hate, potatoes gonna potate, I don't care. It's an okay lens, but I'm not a zoom fan, and the Sigma's better in almost every way. It's lighter, sharper, faster. It's got a weather sealing gasket around the mount. It's better. After that, when I got before I got that Sigma, I had with the XS10, I got the included little pancake zoom thing, the 15 to 45... Oh God, what is it? I want to say it's like 3.5 to 5.6, something like that. That lens was really good for selfies, if I wanted to take any pictures with my wife. And it was pretty wide, 15 mils, quite a luxury. Overall, it was reasonably okay. I got rid of it purely because I would always choose the Sigma over it. I kind of miss its size and portability. It wasn't a particularly good lens. It wasn't the sharpest thing, but it was pretty good for videos, to be honest. And like I say, from a travel standpoint, it was a pretty fun lens. But yeah, there was never a situation once I got the Sigma where I would choose the 15 to 45. So that went. So what have we got rid of so far? We've got rid of the Fuji zoom, and we've got rid of the other Fuji zoom. Yeah. Other than that, the Fujifilm 90mm f2. I had this lens for around 6 months, maybe. I got some of my best pet portraiture with this lens. It's the sharpest lens I've used to date. Nothing comes remotely close. The focusing is insane, and to be fair, when I had this, it was mainly paired with my XS10. That lens is absolutely nuts. However, I'm no longer doing that much pet portraiture, so I couldn't justify keeping it, because it is, it's not an expensive lens, but it was reasonably expensive, and it was sat there for a while. If you're doing pet portraiture and you're on the Fujifilm system, buy this lens. Don't even second question it. It's absolutely phenomenal. It is, like I say, it's the fastest focusing. It's the sharpest lens that Fujifilm have ever made. But 90mm is niche. What's that equivalent to? It's like 135mm in full frame terms or something like that. Not 100% sure. Maybe. Yeah, amazing lens. If I had the use case for it, I would not hesitate to get that lens again. So I only miss it because I know how good it was, but I don't have a use for it right now. Other than that, for my paid work, I've got two Viltrox primes. I've got the 23mm f1.4 and I've got the 56 1.4, which is currently shooting this video. I love those bits of glass. They have some issues, but there's quite a bit of chromatic aberration with them, but they're still with me and they're cheap. And if I drop them and break them, I don't really care because they're super cheap. So, but native Fuji stuff, I've still got the 35. The Sigma's not native, but I've still got it. Yeah, come to think about it, the only native Fujifilm glass I've got now is the 35mm. Because other than that, I've got two Viltrox lenses. I've got a TT Artisans lens, the 27mm f2.8. And then I adapt vintage glass onto there as well. So I've still got some. I use a Nikon 60mm for a lot of my digital scanning and macro work. So that thing's fantastic. So yeah, that's where I am. I would like to try maybe the Fuji 56 f1.2. I am desperate for the 18mm f2 and I keep seeing it pop up at stupidly good prices, but so far I've not purchased it. And my justification is that I've got the Sigma 18 to 50. I should just shoot that at 18 for a little while and see if I actually like shooting like that. But yeah, that's the Fujifilm list of things that I have sold. Do I have any particularly strong regrets? Not really. There's nothing that I really miss. There's stuff that I think about replacing occasionally, but then when I want to buy the same thing, I'm like, well, it's kind of outdated and could be better. If I was going to get an X Pro 1 again, I wouldn't. I'd just get the X Pro 2. I know the 3 is out and I'm waiting for the 4, but there are things about the X Pro 2 that I prefer over the 3. And again, with the X70, it's the same thing. There's quite a lot of compact cameras out there now that perform equally or considerably better. The only thing that's really hanging on for the Fuji X70 is build quality and the fact that it's an APS-C sensor. And there are a few cameras that are coming up to those specs. So we'll see what the rest of 2024 holds. If you enjoyed this, let me know down in the comments. If there's any gear that you regret getting rid of with the Fujifilm system, let me know. I'd love to have a discussion about it, and it might open my eyes to gear that I've not considered in the future. Alright, hope you enjoyed the video. See you in the next one. Peace.